think next up we have Amy Smoot. She's she's a patient advocate from DeSoto County. So Amy, welcome.
Okay, hi. My name is Amy Smoot, and first and foremost, I want to thank Chairman Bryan, Senator Blackwell, and the whole committee for inviting me to speak today. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 4 children. I spent 10 years of my life in emergency medicine. When I graduated EMT school, I took an oath to do no harm. I believe part of the reason I'm here today is because of that oath. Doing no harm means eliminating things which cause harm, stopping certain therapies when they have negative effects on patients, saying the right thing even when it's hard, trying everything even if you disagree with it, and lastly, not giving up until you have exhausted all options. Today, I was asked to speak as a patient advocate. What exactly is a patient advocate and what do they do? A patient advocate is someone who helps the patient navigate the healthcare system. Advocacy means getting the prescription medication your patient can afford. Advocacy means making sure the patient is educated about their healthcare issues. It means making sure your patient is in control of their care. In today's capacity, I will be advocating for 3 specific children. All 3 children I will tell you about have horrific seizures. All 3 have failed multiple pharmaceutical drugs. All 3 have been harmed by conventional pharmaceutical treatment of their seizures. I'm asking you all to give these children a chance. Today, I'm requesting that you legalize their medication. I chose these 3 children because they are in my area. I will tell their stories, and I am demanding you to be compassionate and efficient legislators. I'm a volunteer. I'm tied to no specific organizations. I don't own a business, and I'm not a farmer. I stand here today as a mother. I am here because I have healthy children. These other mothers don't have any other options. They've exhausted all of them. When Initiative 65 was overturned, the rug was ripped out from their feet. The hope they had for their children and their futures were extinguished instantly. Medical cannabis can give these families hope. You can change it, and you alone. After all, these children are our future. The first story and patient I'm going to tell you about today is Riley's story. Riley is a radiant 9-year-old girl, but she's not your normal 9-year-old because Riley is going to change the world. At just 9 months of age, Riley was admitted for seizures at one of the top children's hospitals in the nation. During this hospitalization, a CT scan was done, and it was realized that Riley had half a brain. The very first hospital stay was traumatizing. Riley had to be stuck multiple times in every limb. She had to be held down by numerous staff members as she had not even reached 1 year of life yet. In fact, Riley's grandfathers were kicked out of the hospital because of their vocal opposition to watching their 9-month-old granddaughter go through pure agony. Unfortunately for Riley and her family, this is only the beginning of her story. When Riley was finally discharged from that hospital stay, she came home on so many medications. One of the medications was a gel shot to control her seizures. Her own mother had to administer the shots to Riley, and she sobbed every single time she gave one. That medication regimen went on for 6 months, twice a day. The side effects of this shot were horrible. At 9 months old, Riley was covered in rashes. She tripled in body size. She even stopped eating altogether because of this one medication. Keep in mind now, she's still seizing all the time. These medications weren't working. For 3.5 years, the seizures and hospitalizations continued. Medication after medication were tried, and not a single one worked to stop her seizures. Riley was put on adult doses of benzodiazepines as rescue medicines. She was 5 years old. Riley was hospitalized so much and so often that her parents began to lose hope. They were being forced to watch their daughter slip further and further away every day, and sometimes by the hour. Riley was so sedated, she became a shell of who she had been before the first seizure. She became catatonic, dazed, sleeping a lot, a long way from a normal 5-year-old's life. When she was 5 years old in August of 2017, she had her last hospital stay at the local children's hospital. She spent many days in the intensive care unit, and the adult dosages of benzodiazepines were not stopping her seizures. Adult dosages not stopping her seizures. After many days and no improvements, her neurologist dismissed her home to make preparations for Riley's death. There was nothing more they could do for her. She had maxed out on the medications she could have at a time. Any more, and it would cause Riley to quit breathing. Riley was 5 years old. Her parents did take Riley home, but they did not prepare for their daughter to die. Instead, they packed up every single thing they owned, left their families behind, and moved to Colorado. At this point, they had no idea if medical cannabis would help their daughter, but they at least had to try. On their very first visit to the children's hospital, they knew they made the right decision. Riley and her family were now American medical refugees. Riley had her first dose of THC oil on October 5th of 2017. Riley had her last seizure on October 18th of 2017, 13 days after her first dose of THC oil. She has not had a seizure since. For 3 years and 8 months, her parents have watched as new life was brought to Riley. New life when they told her life was over and she would never get better. It took Riley months to wean off all the benzodiazepines. Riley had her last dose of FDA-approved medication for her seizures on February 15th, 2018. Riley takes THC oil 3 times a day. For the first time in her life, she is off all prescribed medications. The THC oil alone is enough to control her seizures. So why did I decide to tell Riley's story today? Because Riley and her family are from my congressional district. Her grandparents still live there today. But Riley can't come to her home state to visit her grandparents because her medication is illegal. Riley's story highlights the possibilities which become reality when we legalize medical cannabis. Riley was not going to get better, but now she's riding horses, participating in therapy, interacting with her siblings and parents. Riley is happy and building new strengths every single day. Riley is getting a new walker soon, which will give her much more independence than she has ever had. She will be able to move freely as she wishes. And Riley, most importantly, is teaching each and every one of us that a child who was counted out of life before the age of 5 can and absolutely will change the world. The second patient I'm going to tell you about today is Brian. Brian is a handsome 16-year-old baseball-loving boy. Brian had his first seizure at 13 months old. He was diagnosed with mitochondrial disease at age 3.5. There is no known cure or treatment for mitochondrial disease. Mainly, his family just tries to manage and alleviate some of his symptoms. But Brian doesn't need medical cannabis for his mitochondrial disease. He needs cannabis to stop his intractable seizures. Brian, at 16, has failed over a dozen pharmaceutical, FDA-approved medications for his seizures. The majority of the anti-seizure pharmaceuticals have caused damage in ways that you cannot comprehend. Brian became so lethargic to the point he could not even sit up. Some caused excessive drooling. A few even caused Brian to have new types of seizures he'd never had before. Some caused severe, violent, and aggressive behaviors. Brian would be awake for multiple days in a row. We're not talking a little bit of sleep. He would not sleep at all during the day and night. All of those side effects, and he was still seizing. In addition to the seizures and medication side effects, Brian is still fighting mitochondrial disease. Some of the issues from mitochondrial disease are behavioral issues. Brian is a very hyperactive child, and he has a very short attention span. On top of all that, Brian has numerous food allergies. Cannabis certainly would not cure all of Brian's ailments, but it can and would absolutely ease some of his suffering. Reducing harm and providing a better quality of life for Brian is the least that we can do. The third and final patient I'm telling you about today is 2-year-old Miles. At first glance, Miles may seem like your average 2-year-old, fun-loving, adventurous, and full of laughter. But at almost 2 months old, he had his first seizure. He was taken to that same children's hospital as Riley, and his parents were told that he had reflux. 1 week later, when his mom put him in the pool, he turned blue, was stiff, shaking, and lifeless. The type of seizures that Miles have cause him to seize for hours at a time. Miles was just a fragile 2 months old when he seized for an excruciating 2 hours straight. Miles and family spent the next 12 months in and out of the hospital. Miles was still seizing all the time. Miles was airlifted over 20 times in several months. Each time he was intubated, and each time they would require loading doses of the FDA-approved prescriptions. The problem was these prescriptions were making the seizures worse. Each seizure, their answer was just to up Miles' dosage. They were sent to craniologists and epileptologists. All of them had another medication to add. None of them could give Miles' family any real help or answers. To this day, Miles is still mostly unchanged. They tried many things: high doses, low doses, leveled doses, and no changes for the positive. Miles has just gotten worse. Miles has failed 6 pharmaceutical drugs, and he is 2 years old. The rescue medication they gave Miles to stop his seizures never stopped them, not once. They had to prove to the insurance company that Miles' body was not absorbing the rescue medication before they would approve another medication for Miles. Miles has also been on narcotic intramuscular shots, which were showing some help at first. However, his body became resistant to the narcotic. Then the pandemic started. Miles was not able to go to the clinic to be seen as frequently. At 13 months old, Miles quit talking. He wasn't walking. He was very delayed. If you barely touched him, he got a bruise. When they were finally able to be seen, they had labs drawn. Miles already had liver damage. Now Miles' parents were left with an impossible task: to leave Miles on the narcotic, which was already not working, or to take Miles off all medication. Miles has stopped all FDA-approved medication. Remarkably, he started to walk again. He regained his personality, but he began seizing again all the time. Now that Initiative 65 has been tossed, Mississippi will lose this precious family too. Miles can't wait any longer. His parents are out of options. The physicians do not have anything else they can do for Miles unless his parents are willing to put him on more pharmaceuticals. I'm begging you today, please help Miles. I am terrified of what will happen to this 2-year-old radiant little boy. Senators, you all are Miles' last chance. Please do not let him down. And I also have a little slideshow he's going to play for me. You got to take it back to the beginning. There you go. It's going so fast. It says the whole 5 minutes is there, but it's going fast forward. Okay, well, I apologize. It's not. Oh. Okay, well, I apologize. I had a nice PowerPoint put together with slides with all the children and their faces and things like that. So I apologize. I will email that to all of you. I have your email address, and that's mine. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'll be happy to answer them. I'll be happy to put you in touch with families if that's what you need. Just let me know.
Is it possible to play the video, or where does all of that stand? I thought there was some video.
Because it says 6 minutes, but it's not playing the 6 minutes, so I'm not sure what the. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. But like I said, I have your emails. I will happily email this to you guys so you can see it and look through it.
I'm sorry, all of this video Zoom stuff is so far beyond me. I have no idea. But,
Honestly, it's probably my fault too. I'm a PowerPoint newbie, so I'm sorry.
I don't know. I think it's my fault. The machines have been out to get me for years. The members of the committee have questions. Senator Polk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little clarification, Ms. Smoot.
Yes.
Riley went to Colorado.
Mhm.
Did I hear correctly that she went to a children's hospital in Colorado?
She went to Denver Children's Hospital out there.
And at the hospital, the doctors treated her with THC.
The doctors sent her, they have dispensaries up there. So the doctors basically gave her a recommendation, this much THC, how many milligrams, how often. Then she goes, their parents take that to the dispensary. They get an oil, which was one of the slides. She gets 0.3 of a cc of oil, and that's it, 3 times a day. So she takes THC oil, and it's concentrated, but it's just a little dose.
But the doctors recommended this.
Absolutely.
So to answer this question, it may be you, or if Dr. Bryan is still here, she may need to answer. Is the Colorado Medical Association an advocate of medical marijuana?
That is a question that I do not know the answer for specifically, but I will absolutely try to find that answer and get it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Once again, thank y'all for letting me come. I greatly appreciate it.
If you have time, I think there are a couple of other questions. Senator Blackman.
My question was the same as Senator Polk's, the dosage and how it was prescribed.
I'm sorry. Like I said, that was on the slideshow, but I will email it to you guys.
Senator Wiggins.
Real briefly, I think it was the first case you talked about that they couldn't get the THC oil, but it's my understanding that Epidiolex is allowed, which is a CBD oil, is allowed here in Mississippi. Am I right in that?
Some of it is, but the problem that you run into is that if you dose your child with it and then you take your child to an emergency room and that child then tests positive because of that tiny percent of THC, things get rolling. Like the Department of Human Services will come in, they will interview the parents because technically you're not allowed to give your child THC. It is against the law.
Well,
And
but that's a whole separate issue from if Epidiolex is allowed in Mississippi, which it is, and you're giving it for medicine, then you're not going to be, well, legally, you shouldn't be taken in by CPS and all that stuff.
Correct. And the answer for that for Riley, the specific child you were asking, CBD did not help her. And when they got out to Colorado, the doctors were able to figure out that THC, the type of seizures that she had, that CBD would not treat those type seizures.
Okay. So it was different in Colorado. It was different in Colorado.
Yes.
It was a different oil.
It's really concentrated oil, and it's made specifically for Riley. It's not something that just you walk in and buy. It's made just for her.
But their Epidiolex is allowed in Mississippi, which is a
Yes.
cannabis oil.
It's CBD. It doesn't have THC in it, as far as I understand.
But all right. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Ms. Smoot? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Bryan, and thank
Appreciate
you,
your
everyone
being
else. I appreciate
here.
it.
Dr. Brown, did you have? Okay. And our next presenter is Mark